Click the links for Odysee, Bit Chute, or to join the channel, become a member, support channel, and the other various links. Definitely get on Odysee. That looks like that is where everyone on YouTube, it's becoming like the YouTube clone as more and more channels get shown the door on YouTube. Even Tim Pool seems to know that the ground under his feet on YouTube is getting pretty shaky. He did a live stream with Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, and it felt like the beginning of the end. Because if you've got people who've been kicked off the platform and then you host them on the platform, it seems like your own time on the platform is probably getting a little bit short. So Rachel Leishman did one funny skit that I'm aware of, to give her credit. And it wasn't funny, but it had the potential to be funny, so I give her credit for that. She's got a YouTube channel. She did an Indiana Jones skit that you look at and you're like, you could see where it had potential to work. It's like it just needed a little bit more work on it. Anyway, so the left is fascinated with Saint Mel Gibson. They literally try to cancel people while simultaneously saying cancel culture doesn't exist. Cancel culture still exists. It just might not have been as successful as they would have liked it to be. They still tried to cancel someone. They had the mens rea and the actus reus, the state of mind and the act itself. They try to cancel people. Mostly they are very successful, but apparently Mel Gibson is too talented. He's made of Teflon, or he knows where the bodies are buried, which might be more accurate knowing Hollywood. So a lot of what the discourse revolves around is you got some public figure who'll make a comment on the idea, which is fair enough. But with these secondary writers, these idiots, it's the Mary Sue and the cat ladies and soy boys on Twitters, just the most insufferable, pompous people. They whine about the person who made the comment, not the original idea. This is the big issue. People talking about issues and ideas. We do the same in Comics Geek and Phantom Menace. We talk about how horrible films and comics are, or even politicians. But what the Twitter idiots do is they talk about what jerks we are and not whether the ideas are good or bad. It's the ad hominem attack. They never talk about why they like the films, because they don't. There's no way they could like most of these films. Most of the woke films that have come out in the past 5 years, starting with, I think Star Wars came out in 2015 and the Ghostbusters 2016. You can roughly say start that as when things started to get weird with big films, was the 2015 Star Wars. They don't. Those movies suck. And I can prove that is movies that have staying power are movies that have rewatchability. Star Wars doesn't have rewatchability. Even the prequels in the 90s have more rewatchability, and those weren't great either. But you could probably go back and watch the last one, or I don't know, maybe fast forward through scenes, or you could really combine all three of those movies into one super movie with a lot of the slower stuff edited out. The problem with those movies is they tried to do too much with CG in 1999, and the CG technology wasn't there. It's still not there today, and it's 20 years later. But you can go back and watch the old Star Wars. Those movies definitely do have rewatchability. Though now, if you follow, the problem is with Twitter, you get to know all these actors, and you follow Mark Hamill, and you're like, oh, this guy's a total jerk off. And the thing is, it's you can kind of forgive Mark Hamill because you get the feeling he's not that bright, legitimately not a bright guy. And he's also a little bit far removed from the reality of, I'm sure he's living in some gated community up in the hills somewhere, just far away from it all. It's Mark, you don't really know what everyone else is going through, and you're pontificating from on high. Anyway, what they do is they do these ad hominem attacks. They're not talking about why they love these woke movies. I don't know, what was Charlie's Angels or Birds of Prey or Wonder Woman 1984. We say they suck, and we say why they suck, but then they come after us and say we suck, instead of saying, well, what did you like about these movies? Oh, it was empowering and diverse. That's not a reason to like a movie, and you know it, and we know it. It's that's not, no, what did you like about the character, the development, or even the technology involved in making the film? What about the story? Oh, it was diverse. You don't like films or stories because they're diverse. That's propaganda. You're just repeating, you're just parroting propaganda points. Everything in the past 5 years sucks balls. And now here's bad news. It's going to continue to suck balls. There's no hope on the horizon for anything in the mainstream. There's no silver lining on that cloud. If you want something decent, you're going to have to go the Comicsgate route, or I don't know, the independent film route's a little bit rough because films are so expensive. But like comics and stories, like Mike Miller, John Delarose, and Ethan Van Sciver, and like John Mayle, all those guys are writing their own IPs, and they're probably not going to be as woke as the absolute dog shit that you're seeing out of the mainstream. I want to bring this up before I forgot. They're talking about two people have a different perspective on events. And one person is essentially alleging defamation, a defamatory statement of fact, not opinion. Where Winona Ryder, who's got a history of kleptomania, I don't know if it's some kind of like sexual thrill to steal or whatever, but she's got a history that goes to her character of being dishonest, stealing things. She was famously busted in the 90s for stealing things. And it's like, celebrity people are bending over backwards to let her get away with things, which really isn't fair to everyone else. But anyway, so he alleges that she defamed him, defamatory statement of fact, injurious to his reputation. So what this Variety magazine is saying, like they expect people who are merely accused. This is why you never apologize to SJWs. Just flat out call them liars. When they make some accusation against you, say, you're lying. You're a filthy, lying person. So they say this, acknowledged her perspective of the events. Why would I acknowledge something that I'm saying is defamation? She lied. She made it up out of whole cloth to injure my reputation. Don't acknowledge, don't bow down to these people. Tell them, I'll say all the words about them that I can't say on YouTube. Anyway, so anything in the mainstream is over. It's all gonna be dog food. It's all gonna go through this function box, if you remember algebra, political correctness box, where you insert Ozzy Osbourne "Bark at the Moon," and out comes K-pop covering a Taylor Swift song. I want to hear Taylor Swift covering Guns N' Roses, covering Charles Manson. I can't be the only one who's sick and tired of soy boy pussies telling us what is haram. Believe it or not, the left used to absolutely be pro-free speech. Remember that Berkeley March in the 60s? They're holding up the sign, free speech, and then 50 years later, they're burning down signs saying no free speech. Then all these left-wing people, they all got subverted by godless communists. I was listening to someone do a live stream tonight. They're talking about trying to figure out when the subversion became apparent. It was pretty quick after the 60s. Like, 60s had a certain vibe. And then by the 70s, things were starting to churn and burn. And by the 80s, the subversion had completely started. And it goes into like the Hart-Celler Act in 1965, too. It's like it takes time for that thing to catch up. Anyway, so people are going to say words that you disagree with. Pre-social media, the Hollywood mags and rags might touch the incident, or they might gloss over it. Because say you've got two pharmaceutically enhanced celebrities at some Hollywood party, and they're making jokes because they're, in their cups, so to speak. So do you want to live in a society where every time you speak, you have to look over your shoulder and whisper? That was Russia, China, Korea, Cuba, a lot of Poland for sure, other Eastern European countries. There's a lot of places that where communism, Bolshevism takes heed. Why would you want to give in to a society of toxic cat ladies and soy boys on Twitter? They spend their entire life trying to destroy your life. These Twitter idiots will spend hours a day online whinging about nothing. Winning internet fights has got to be the saddest use of your time. You won an internet fight. What did you win? Bupkis and nada. You won a hot load of nothing all over your face. You could spend that time learning musical theory and hate music, and it would still be a better use of your time. You could film skits with dolls where they just call each other istophobic insults, and it would be more productive. That worked for Monday and Matt. So there needs to be an application that shows time spent on social media. There are soy people who will spend 2 hours a day on Twitter and Facebook. It is amazing how the time adds up. I was there myself before I finally got off it. And you'll go through a little dopamine withdrawal, like wanting to pick up the phone and click, 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 click. It's like, yeah, that's just dopamine. It's like every hit of a cigarette, it's the same Twitter hit. It's like getting in fights on Twitter. It's just, it's really kind of masturbatory when you think about it. Unless you're selling something on social media, it's a waste of your time. Like anything. Learn how to draw, write a story. Cancel culture, these political commissars are terrified of the reins of power slipping through their fingers. They have almost total control of the mainstream narrative, even now, but it's not enough. They want it all, which will probably, hopefully, be their undoing, because people are just so sick of this stuff. People look at these worms telling us what is permissible speech, and they realize that offensive speech is better than censorship. Listen, everyone, I'm not saying everyone drops N-bombs incessantly, but it's not that. The one group of people, N-bombs is going to be offensive. And to be fair, probably most of us. But there's other things, like this guy, not Alex Jones, Mel Gibson, or anyone at a party. It's like you say something that's offensive to one community, and it's like, okay, that community is off limits. They're going to cancel you for it. And then you say something offensive. Now, here's the thing with all this stuff. We all know it's not a two-way street. You know it's not a two-way street. It's only going to be applied against the people of the light. To the extent where, like, it's better for a lot of these people who are sick and tired of Hollywood canceling people to start up something new, like a parallel Hollywood. Most of us are okay with rules, but they have to be applied equally. And right now in America, rules are definitely not applied equally. And you look at these cat ladies like Rachel Leishman and this other girl who wrote an article, Kaylee Donaldson, just bitching about Mel Gibson because he has a sense of humor. OMG, some things are not okay. Yeah, they are. It's all okay. I look at the Mary Sue, and I have no clue how they stay in business. I almost wonder if they use it as a tax dodge. I have to look into the Mary Sue to see who owns it. I had a joke in there, but I would definitely eat the channel. The thing is, most people are not politically correct. Do we want to live in a world run by these idiots on, the Mary Sue and Variety, and these idiots on Twitter, just morons who spend hours a day on social media just to fight with people? It's insane. And if that's you, after 6 months of it, you got to look at it and you're like, oh, I'm spending an hour a day on Twitter over the course of 6 months. How many hours is that? I don't know. It's a lot, but you're like, you could do and you could be reading history, and it would be a better use of your time. These people will try to destroy you over humor, and it's like, well, what is acceptable to me in humor is, really almost anything. And what's acceptable to you is like, we're all going to have different standards, but the social lubricant is that we don't, before social media, we didn't have a place to really try to blow this up. We had people who were like, they used to call them like barracks lawyers, who are wanting to make, or even, who is it, that black philosopher who's like, this was 100 years ago. He was talking before Malcolm X. He was talking about there are people who want to improve race relations, and there are people who benefit by not improving race relations, and that concept works. Right now, that concept is seen out on social media in places like the Mary Sue, whose bread and butter is doing this kind of stuff. Where in a smoothly running society, you would look at this and you'd be like, oh yeah, this isn't really helping the situation. Most things is better to just let them go. Someone said something, a little blue humor. All right, you didn't think it was funny. Well, you don't have to work with that person. But it's these people, these Mary Sue types, they're getting paid on clicks. So it's like the property there, I guess, in a way. They can't let it go, because this is how they make their money, by acting like parasites. It's essentially what it is. They're just like biting and biting and biting and keeping things in the news to get eyeballs. It's like, yeah, you're making things worse for everyone else. We all have to deal with you guys making this stuff worse. And we all know this. Some of us are cluing into it. And it's going to be awesome when more people get on Odysee and Bit Chute and all the alt platforms. Gab especially. Gab is huge. Gab and Odysee are growing amazingly because we're finally going to be able to have honest conversations. Like there's going to be a window of time on Odysee where you've got free speech, and then as the money starts coming into Odysee, it's monetized now, but as more and more money comes into it, I guarantee they're going to start cracking down on speech. It's going to take a few years though, because it's going to get to a point where you've got bigger advertisers coming in, or the guy might sell it out to somebody. But it's like that's a few years away. We've got a few sweet years on Odysee where we're going to be able to get a lot of this stuff out on the table. And the thing is, when we have free speech, us people, either libertarians or loosely on the right, or even if you're on the left but you're truly a liberal, we have the better arguments. Where it's like, what do you think Ben Shapiro won't talk to, Nick Fuentes or one of those guys? Like, he should be talking to these people. And it happens with all these kind of people. It's like all these people, they want to control the narrative so tightly. They have this narrow window of, and I'll cut this off. It's a little bit too base for YouTube. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.